Today I am going to show you how to make the same stitch with two different types of beads, and you end up with two different bracelets. However, works great for both, and they're both just as beautiful as each other. So let me show you real close. This I used the beads from the Golden Harvest treasure bag, and this I used a 4mm cube. So you can do either. I will show you this one in detail, and then I'll show you how to do this one with a slight modification towards the end after I've done this one. So you'll get to see both. I'm doing the 4mm cube one first and in more detail because that bead is more available. Most people have it in their stash. And I have a bunch of them in my online store, and I don't have a bunch of these. However, you can probably use a bead like this too. This is a previous one I did. This one's a little bit more complicated than this. This is very simple, pretty quick moving, and it turns out really pretty. So let's go ahead and look and see what it takes to make this particular pattern. Okay, for this project today, I'm going to show you how to do the same bracelet with two different types of beads. We're going to be using the cuboid that came in the Golden Harvest treasure bag, or you can use a 4mm cube, just a regular 4mm crystal cube. I have a bunch online. If you would like some on my website, you can get some. You probably have some in your stash, and you can get these anywhere. That's why I'm going to do this version first, and then I will show you with just a slight modification how to use this bead. Now you can use whatever you would like in this particular project. You can even use a 4x4 cube. So this is with the 4x4 cuboid, excuse me. It's exactly the same stitch you will do when I show you how to use this cube. And that's, like I said, just a slight modification in bead size. So for the 4mm cube bracelet, you're going to need 11 seed beads, and I have a antique bronze Toho. And then you will also need an 8/0 and 15/0 seed beads. So your 8/0s, I have a galvanized permanent finish Starlight Toho, and I have Montana Gold Toho. So for this particular bracelet with the cubes, you will need all three of these seed beads. For the version that I show you with the cuboid, you will, or even if you're using the small cuboid, you will just need 8/0, 15/0, and your cuboids. You will also need clasp. For this version, I'm going to use a box clasp, and I have a bunch of these online. If you want one, you can use any clasping you'd like. This just works really well with this particular stitch that I'm going to do with the cubes. For the other one, I could use a box clasp, but I'm going to go ahead and use a toggle since I know those are more available to everybody. And it's interchangeable. Like I said, you can use any clasping you want. So we're also going to be using 10-pound Nanofil, or you can use 8-pound Nanofil, or you can use 6-pound Fireline. Now, when extending your thread for this project, you have to make sure that you make very small blobs at the end of your thread when you're extending. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I will post a video in the description box beneath the video player that will show you how to do that. I also recommend for this, because it's 15/0s, that perhaps you tie on instead of extending. You just tie on a thread bridge a couple of units back, and then sew through those units again, and then continue with your new thread, cut off your old thread. Of course, you want to tie it first before you do, and I will show you that method also. I'm going to post a video that will show you both methods in the description box beneath the video player. We're going to start with the wingspan. That's when you put your arms out to your sides and you measure from your fingertips of your first arm, the length of the first arm across your chest, the length of the second arm, and to your fingertips on that arm. We're going to start with that length. That's called a wingspan. We're going to use the size 12 beading needle because it's easier to pass through the 15-0 seed beads with a size 12. So let's go ahead and get started with this project. Okay. To start the project with 4mm cubes, you are going to pick up an 8-0 seed bead, you're going to pick up a 4mm cube, you're going to pick up another 8-0 and a 15-0 seed bead. You're going to bring this down to the end of your thread. Leave an 8 to 10 inch tail to put your clasping on. At this point, I'm not going to leave quite that much, just so that I don't have to struggle around it while you're watching me here. So now that you have these beads, you have to hold on to them and hold on to the tail at the same time. You're going to go around the 15-0, go into the 8-0 and the cube and the 8-0 on the other side. Hold on to the tail, hold on to all the beads, and pull your thread through until that 15-0 seed bead comes up right on top of this 8-0 here. Just like this. Hold on to the tail still. It's loose on this side, so just hold on to that tail. Pick up a 15-0 seed bead and then go into the 8-0 and the cube on this side. So you're just exiting the cube, ignoring the beads on the bottom. Pull this down just like this. Now we are going to pick up 11-0 and then a cube, and then an 11-0 onto our needle like this. We are going to go into the opposite side of the cube from which we're coming out. So we're coming out here, we're going to go into the cube here, just like this. I'm still holding onto the tail, I'm still holding onto the cube until I get everything secure here, and I'm pulling this down. Now you have to line the cubes up. They don't want to lay perfectly next to each other, so just line them up like this, and then turn your piece and go through the 11-0 seed bead here. Put your thumb and fingers together, still holding on to that tail back there, and just pull this through. Then you're going to go up through the cube, hold on to the beads, and then pull the thread tight, go through the 11-0 on this side. Hold on to your beads, pull the thread, and then go back into the cube on this, or your previous cube. The easiest way is to go in front of the 8-0 seed beads. Pull this down, and then go back into the 11-0. So basically, we're just sewing a circle around, securing those 11-0 seed beads between the two cubes, just like this. Once you've done that, then you're going to go up into the cube here. Now, sewing around may seem like a whole lot, but if you do not do that, your beads are going to split halfway through. As you're working your other units, the previous units will kind of split. So that's why we're doing that. So now we're going to pick up an 8-0 seed bead and a 15-0 seed bead here. And we're going to drop this down to the cube. We're going to go around the 8-0 seed bead, or excuse me, around the 15-0 seed bead into the 8-0 seed bead. I'll get you even closer so you can see exactly what I'm doing. And we're going to pull this down. The 15-0 should lodge really nicely on top of that 8-0 seed bead. Then you pick up an 8-0 and a 15-0 and bring it down to your cube. Lost my 15-0. Where are you? There you are. Bring him down right there. And then we're going to go around the 15-0 into the 8-0 and then exit the cube. Now, you want to make sure both units are nice and tight. Bring your thread around that top one, and this is what you should have. Now, we're going to do another unit, so we're going to pick up an 11-0 and a cube and an 11-0 onto our needle like this. We're going to go in front of these 8-0s, so just kind of push them back gently and go through the cube like this. Before you completely tighten it, give the thread in the loop a little tug here so that your 8/0s on your previous unit are nice and tight. Bring this one up and arrange it. The first couple are a little harder to get into line, so you just have to work them into line. And then you go through your 11/0 next to where your thread is coming out of the previous cube. Go into the cube you just added. Go into the 11/0 on this side here. And then go in front of the 8/0s, push them back, go through the cube, straighten everything back out, and then go through the 11/0 here. Just like that. You can turn it around in your hand or whatever you need to do to get through there nice and neat. Keep it nice and neat and tight. Then go through the cube, pick up an 8/0 and pick up a 15/0, drop it down, go around the 15/0 and into the cube. Hold on to your piece, pull that down tight until the 15/0 is nice and tight on top of the 8/0. And then pick up an 8/0 and a 15/0, drop it down to your piece, go around the 15/0 into the 8/0 and through the cube. Pull it nice and tight, arrange the top one, bring your thread over to the side, and then pick up an 11/0, a cube, and an 11/0. I'm going to try going through the side and see if that works as well. Nope, it works better if I just go in front of the 8/0s. And if you feel like you're loosening your 8/0s, then just pull on your thread. Bring this around. Lay out your cube. I'm going to turn it over so I can sew through this 11/0 here. Then I'm going to turn it back over, go through the cube, go through the 11/0 here, and go through the previous cube in front of the 8/0s. Pull it tight. I'm going to turn it over so I can go through the 11/0 here. So right next to where I'm coming out, right where my thread is coming out, I will go into that 11/0. Then I will go into the cube here. Pick up an 8/0, a 15/0, and drop it down. And that's what there is to this stitch, basically. You're just doing a fringe through the cube. That's all you're doing. Putting an 11/0 in between so that you don't see the thread bridge in between the beads. So that's all this is. And we're going to go around the 15/0, into the 8/0, into the cube. Then we're going to pick up an 8/0 and a 15/0. Drop it down. Go around the 8/0. Go up into the cube, or go into the cube, yes. Yes, I said it right. And then we're going to pick up an 11/0, a cube, and an 11/0, and go in front of the 8/0s on the previous one. You can tug on your thread if you need to, if they loosen up. Bring it down, move it around so that it'll go into the proper place. Just like that. Sew through it. Sew through the 11/0, sew through the cube, sew through the 11/0. You're just sewing a circle. Go back into the previous cube, like this, and then into the 11-0. I tried doing it without going all the way around again, and like I said, the cubes just split. So it's better to go all the way around. Pick up an 8-0, pick up a 15-0, drop it down, go around the 15-0, into the 8-0, into the cube, pick up an 8-0 and a 15-0, drop it down, go around the 15-0, into the 8-0, into the cube, and make sure everything's nice and tight. If your bottom one gets really loose, you can always tighten it by pulling on your top one and then tightening your top one like that. So there are ways to tighten it as you do this. I hope I was in camera. I think I was just kind of drifting off. But this is the stitch, and you're just going to continue doing this stitch until you have 33 units. So that means I used 33 cubes. Or you are an inch short of the length that you would like to achieve at the end. So this is measuring 6 inches. Once I add my clasping, that should give me an inch, and I should have around a 7-inch bracelet. Now, you can adjust from that information exactly how much you want to make. So if you're very small, you'll probably want to make 5 inches. If you're larger, you'll probably want to make 7 inches. And once you've achieved that, then we will put our clasping on. So we are coming out of the last cube here, and that is after I've made my last unit, secured it, put on my 8-0 seed beads, I'm coming out of the cube, because you'll always exit the cube to make your next unit. So now I'm going to use a box clasp for this one. So I'm going to take it apart. And you can see this has a jump ring. I do not want to attach to the jump ring simply because of the fact that they can open, and with thread it can slip through. So I'm just going to take this jump ring off of this end of this clasp. And I need to open it with something. So I'm just going to open it and take it off. Yeah, that was clumsy. Okay, so I've got that. And I'm going to go ahead and put this end on, and then we can sew the other end on with our tail thread. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads and an 8-0 seed bead. I'm going to drop it down to my piece. So I'm coming out of the cube. I have 2 11-0s and I have an 8-0 right here. Then I'm going to go up through my loop on my clasp here. Now I want to make sure that this is going to be the proper way. I believe this is the proper way. So yeah, I can test it. So the loop will be on the bottom. And then we are going to go into the 8-0 seed bead here. Now, if you have a toggle or you have a lobster claw, whatever, just sew through the loop. This is the other end of the clasping. So if you're using a jump ring, just come up through the 8-0 and down into the loop or into the 8-0. If you're using a lobster claw or something. So it's exactly the same thing. No matter what you're sewing through, you're going to do this the same way. Then once you've come through the 8-0, you're going to pick up 2 11-0s and you're going to go through the cube, trying to avoid the 8-0s on either side. Okay, let me do that again. There we go. And pull this down. And now you can see I have a nice little attachment. I'm just going to ignore this 11-0 or this 8-0, excuse me, again, coming out of that cube, going to go up into the 11-0s, into the 8-0, and then into the loop of the clasp. Then I'm going to go ahead and go into the other side here. And through the cube. Let's do that one more time. Tie a knot, and then we'll just put our needle on the other side and do the exact same thing on the other side. So let's go through the loop again here, into the 8-0, into the 2 11-0s, and into the cube. Now that I have 3 passes of thread through here, just like this, I can grab this little thread bridge that's right between the 11-0 and the 8-0 and the cube here. Let me get you really close so you can see what I'm talking about. There's a little thread bridge right in between these beads here. I'm going to go underneath that thread bridge. Direct my thread so that it goes right onto that thread bridge. Make a loop and pull down a little knot. Then I can go into this 11-0 seed bead here and into the cube next to where I'm at. So just going to the next cube. Then there's another thread bridge right here between the 11-0 and the 8-0. I'm going to try to pass my needle underneath right here. Straighten my thread up so it goes down onto that thread bridge when I tie my knot. I'll pass through my loop and draw that down, just like that. Then I'll go through the next 11-0. If I messed up my unit there, or if it was messed up. Oh, I see what I did. You see what I did? I put an 11 over there instead of a 15-0. Oh, bad, 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 Gina. Okay, into here. And then I will cut my thread off. Leave a tag. Get the heat close and just roll it in. And that's how you'll put your clasping on. That looks really odd with an 11-0 there. Oops. I'll have to devise a way to fix that. But anyway, that's how you do that side. And then we are going to put our thread that we reserved on the tail side onto our needle. So I'm going to go ahead and thread mine. I'll come back and show you how to set up the other side. We'll sew through it and knot it off just like we did on the other side. Okay, so now we're going to put this side on, and I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, and then I'm going to pick up an 8-0, and I'm going to drop it down to my piece. Then I'm going to go through the loop on my clasp, then I'm going to go back through the 8-0 seed bead here. I'm going to pick this up and hold on to it so I can guide this all through, bringing my clasp down around. Now I want to make sure that my CZ stays on the top here. The top of my clasping is correct and it doesn't twist. And then I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s. And I'm going to go into the opposite side of the cube from which I'm coming out, right here. And again, I have to fix my clasping. Just like that. Now, you will sew through this again 2 times and then sew through and tie off just like we did the other side. So you can back up the video if you'd like and watch how we did that, but it will be exactly the same process. So let's do that, and once we have, I'll come back and show you the finished piece. Okay, so here is the finished piece. I'll take it off and show it to you too, but I wanted you to see what it looks like on the wrist without watching me having to put it on. So this is what this looks like. It's really pretty. Look at how pretty that clasping is. That box clasp turned out really pretty on this. And all I have to do is take it off and show you what it looks like. And that's what that looks like. Now we're going to briefly go over how to use these and make a bracelet with these. Okay, to use this cube in this pattern, you are only going to need a 15-0 seed bead and your 8-0s. Well, not a 15-0, several preferably, but what we're going to do is the exact same thing. We're going to pick up an 8-0 seed bead, we're going to pick up a cube, we're going to pick up an 8-0 seed bead, and we're going to pick up a 15-0. Now we're going to bring this down to the end of our thread. You want to leave an 8 to 10 inch tail. I'm not going to do that right now, but you need to do that so you can put your clasping on. Then you're going to go around the 15-0, you're going to go into the 8-0, and then you're going to go into the 8-0 on the other side. So through the cube and through the 8-0. Pull this through and tighten it on that side. Then you're going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead while holding onto the tail, hold onto your bead, and then go through the 8-0 on this side. Go through the 8-0 and the cube, and then hold on to all of it and pull that down. Now the only difference with this stitch is you're going to use a 15-0 in between the beads. So you're going to pick up a 15-0, and then your next cube, and then a 15-0. And you're going to go back around into the cube. Now with this one, it's a little harder to sew back through like we did with the 11-0s. But you can do it, or you can just go through the 15-0, go up through the cube, make sure the 15-0s are pulled in tight, everything's tight, and then you can just move on to the rest of the stitch. Because the 15-0 is so much smaller, we can cinch this in tighter and we can keep it from splitting. So now we're going to pick up an 8-0 seed bead and a 15-0 seed bead and drop it down. Now you just want to go through this more gently, simply because you do not want to split your beads. So now you're going to go around the 15-0 into the 8-0 and into the cube. Hold on to both of those beads tightly. Pull this down, because as you're pulling through, you don't want to separate your beads at all. Then you're going to pick up an 8-0 seed bead and a 15-0 seed bead, just like this. You're going to drop this down. I have two of them. No, not two. Drop this down, and then go around the 15-0, into the 8-0, into the cube, come out in front of the 8-0 on the other side, just like this. Hold on to it, pull this down, tighten it up, move your thread over, because it's in front of the bead. You want to move it over, pick up a 15-0, pick up a cube, pick up a 15-0, and then go back into the cube in front of the 8-0. So you can just push it back. The way I'm holding it is making it difficult. So let me push that back, go through this side. Come on, you. Just like that. It's a little bit more bead to pass through, so you kind of have to manipulate those 8-0s a little bit more than we did with the cube, the regular cube. Pull this all down, get it very tight. Make sure you hold on to your other beads that you've previously done as you pull on it, so you don't pull anything apart. Then go down through the beads and then pick up your 8/0 and your 15/0, and it's the same all the way through now. So we're just going to drop this down and go up through and pick up an 8/0 and a 15/0, and that is all there is to it. Now make sure your 15/0s and 8/0s and all these little seed beads are lined up nice, look nice. Come through, line everything up, and then just continue. And you will continue until you have 40 units or 40 cuboids. Again, this is 6 inches long. I'm leaving an inch short of the actual length that I want to finish with for my clasping. So again, you will adjust according to the length that you would like to end up with. So now we are going to, we are going to use a couple of 11/0 seed beads, simply because when you're putting your clasping on and you need to sew through so many times to secure it, a 15/0 really doesn't accommodate that much thread. So we're going to pick up, this time, I believe I will use, do I need 3? I'm going to pick up 3 11/0s and an 8/0. I'm going to see if I like this. Yeah, that's fine. And then I'm going to go through the loop on my clasp right here. So I might get a little bit more than an inch, but that's okay. I think this is going to work out fine because this is going to spread, so it should be fine. Now we're going to go through the 8/0, just like we did before. Drop down your 11/0s, go up through your 8/0, go through your loop, go through and pull, and then pick up 3 11/0s and go into the opposite side of the cube from which you're attaching. So you're coming out of that side, we're going to go into this cube, I'm going to move the 8/0s aside, and I'm going to pull this down. Just like that. Now you will get a little splitting with your beads. Like I said before, they don't lay exactly perfect, but they lay pretty nice. It turns out pretty nice. So you just kind of want to hold on to it. If you need to, you can sew down into the previous one. Also, as you're putting your clasp, if it slips a little bit, you can sew into the previous one and just tighten it all as you do this. Go ahead and sew through this a couple more times and knot it off like I showed you on the previous bracelet. Same thing, just go on the little thread bridges, tie it off, and we will be back and set up the other side. Okay, so you can see I've gone ahead and put my clasping on this side. Where it was a little loose on this second one, I just sewed through it and then came back up and finished doing my securing of my clasping. So you can tighten it up if you need to on that second little bead from your clasping end. It's quite easy, just follow your thread path. Then we're going to come to this side, put your needle on your tail thread that you have left in reserve, and then pick up 3 11/0 seed beads, an 8/0, excuse me, and then go through the clasping here. Then go back through the 8/0 here. Draw it all down and together and make a big mess of it like I just did. Let's get you closer. And then pick up 3 more 11/0 seed beads. And we've done all this on the previous bracelet, so I'm going through it rather quickly. I do realize that. But I just wanted to show you to use your Golden Harvest treasure bag, you can do this. Then we're going to go back through the cube on this side. Pull it all through. untwist you. And that's what that should look like. Now again, sew through and secure this, tie it off in a thread bridge, and then sew through a couple of your beads, cut off your thread, and we'll be back. And here it is. How pretty that turned out. I'll take it off and show it to you too. But I wanted you to see what it looked like on the wrist. It really turned out pretty. And though they're not exactly perfect next to each other, all of them, on the wrist, they look great. So try to get them as close and as tight and as pretty as you can. But if they're a little bit apart, which I'll show you with mine, there are some just a little bit apart. That's okay. It doesn't look bad. So don't stress yourself out trying to make them exactly perfect. Let me get you close so you can see what I'm talking about. There's a little bit of discrepancy between each one, a little bit, you know, of space. So that's what that looks like. And it just looks beautiful on the wrist. And then this is what this one looks like with my weird 11-0 and all. I'm going to have to probably pull out and fix that, but because that's going to bug me. But that's what that looks like. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you did, please consider subscribing, hitting the little bell for notifications, and perhaps even giving me a like. Okay? That would be swell. I cannot talk today. I gotta go. Okay, see ya. Bye-bye.